Hey, what is going on, everybody? James here with Heavyweight Politics. It is Monday's start of a new week, and we got a good story for you here today, all right? So, we got this story here from the Globe and Mail. This is a Canada outlet. Working from home is causing breakdowns. Ignoring the problem and blaming the pandemic is no longer an option. Now, this article was actually sent to me by one of my coworkers. I do work a white collar job, so as my wife, we have not been impacted at all that much by the pandemic. We've been very, very fortunate in that regard. In fact, I think last year we made more money than we have ever made before. So when one of my coworkers sent this over saying they just were having all these difficulties, all these strugglings trying to work from home, I'll be honest, I don't totally get it. I work from home. I actually really enjoy it. My wife works from home. She really enjoys it. But let's go through a little bit of this article. It's a long article, so I don't want to go too much in the weeds with it, but I do want to hit some points. And the first thing really is just this title, right? Working from home is causing breakdowns. Ignoring the problem and blaming the pandemic is no longer an option. Blaming the pandemic is no longer an option. We can't blame the pandemic for, the lockdowns in general, which I guess in a way is true, right? I mean, why are we blaming the pandemic at this point? At this point, why aren't we blaming our governments for enforcing these terrible lockdowns? Hard to say. But let's see here. By conventional measure, last year was stellar for Erin Durant. The pandemic had been tough, but the litigator in Ottawa, now working from home, her practice was busier and more profitable than ever. She planned her typical brief break over Christmas, expecting to return to work refreshed in January, but when Miss Durant took a peek at her 2021 calendar, it felt impossibly overwhelming. What followed was something she described as a total collapse. She spent days in bed, mostly hiding in darkness of her room. Ultimately, Miss Durant took a 6-week leave from work, making it the first time in her professional career that she had been off for more than 2 weeks at one time. The cause of this breakdown were very subtle, building over time in the fog of a pandemic that was upended so much of working life. She took on more work while steering her thriving practice through the economic turbulence. Meanwhile, social activities such as client networking events, after work drinks were canceled, casual conversations with coworkers over coffee breaks were non-existent, and legal conferences turned into faceless Zoom meetings. Now, I think a lot of people can relate to this. Anyone who's had a white collar job, I think, can sort of relate to this idea that we, no longer have coffee breaks. We're no longer talking with our friends. We're no longer just meeting with people who, used to kind of make work almost enjoyable for a lot of us. Now, I moved away from where I worked in my office, so I've been working from home for quite a while now. Same thing with my wife, actually. So we've already kind of grown accustomed to this. But there is something to this. Now, don't get me wrong. Part of me wants to laugh, right? Because she's making more money than ever. She's doing fantastic. She really has almost no problems to be complaining about, in comparison, of course, to the people who are really struggling, right? The real victims of the pandemic are not her. It's not me. It's not my wife. It's not anyone in the white-collar community. All right, for the most part, it's blue-collar workers. It's business owners. It's restaurants. It's your local businesses more than anything else, right? Because, of course, we can all go to Walmart, but I can't go to a local shoe store, right? It's small businesses that are really struggling. It's your regular blue-collar employees that are really taking on the brunt of everything going on. So really, we got no room to complain, right? Us white-collar workers, we got no room to complain about almost anything going on for the most part when it comes to work, because we're doing just fine. Everything's hunky-dory, right? We're doing great. But it doesn't mean there isn't something to what's happening to her, right? She described it as a total collapse. She went days just in bed, hiding in the darkness of her room. There is burnout. It is true. There is some form of burnout. Now, what the white collar burnouts being right now is the fact of, it's more so, I still say, an issue of people not having the right schedules. What are people mostly doing? Well, they're rolling out of bed, right? They're rolling out of bed, sitting down in their computer, and going straight to work from there. it used to be we had this time in between work, and after work we had this time to kind of decompress before we got home. Now it's no longer, right? Now it really is. A lot of people, if they have to work at 9, they're getting up at 8:30, not taking a shower, putting on some PJs and just sitting down and starting work right at 9. They're not giving themselves any room for that break. They're not allowing themselves to move into their day. They're just starting it right then and there. This is a recipe for burnout. And when she says that she spends most of her days in bed, hiding in the darkness of her room, that that's what a lot of people are doing on weekends when they're off work. All right, a lot of these white collar workers, what they're doing is they're sitting there and just going, oh, I don't even want to move now. And they just lay in bed all day long. You cannot be doing this. You just cannot. It will destroy you. You need to be out. You need to be moving. Now, of course, in Canada, they have some more strict lockdowns to a point where you can barely do any type of real exercise. But exercise is so important. You need to do that if you want to avoid that kind of mental drain, right? I mean, I get up, I've already done my 5 miles today, right? It doesn't take much. It just takes, getting up a little bit early, right? These are the issues that they seem to really be facing. It's more of an issue of no longer having a true routine that is a healthy routine. But let's get back to it. So people use the term pandemic fatigue, but that underestimates what we're going through, says Paula Allen, head of research and well-being at Monroe Chappelle. People are at the point of emotional exhaustion. Nearly a year into physical separation from colleagues, bosses, clients, sometimes coupled with kids trapped at home, white-collar professionals are cracking. Often top performers who tend to push through the pain are those who are struggling the most. The recent, whatever that word is, survey found that 40% of managers and finance and professional services have considered leaving their jobs since the pandemic started. Now, I listen, I still say part of this is just white collar workers not appreciating what they have. Really, they don't appreciate what they have. If they're concerned leaving their jobs because of what's happening right now, what about the people who have no jobs? What about the people who are waiting in lines for food, right? I just got back from a trip to New York recently for business. Guess what? People were laid off left and right. I was working on trying to hire some new people. I hired some people for some very low-level jobs who at literally before the pandemic were making 6 figures a year with, high qualifications. And they lost everything in New York because of how bad the New York economy got. And guess what? They are now having to work crap jobs, and not really crap jobs, but they're having to work very low income jobs compared to what they were doing, right? A lot of people have lost a lot of things. If you're actually in the mindset where you're just going to quit your job right now with everything going on, that's an issue. All right, you got to push through it. You got to figure out what you got to do to make sure you continue to provide for yourself and your family. And what I would like to actually figure out, though, is of these people who are actually having these burnouts, how many of them are married? How many of them are living alone, right? Actually living just by themselves. I think that's probably the bigger issue here. They point to the fact of, physical separation has been a major issue. Physical separation has been a major issue. We're social creatures, all right? We're designed to be around other people. That's just the way our minds work. I want to know how many of these people who are really struggling with a lot of this fatigue have wives, have husbands, have children. Because guess what? I mean, me and my wife have had no issue. Why? Because, when we're done with work, we spend time together. When we both go on break for lunch, we spend time together. We have lunch together. We do things together throughout the day still, even while working. Instead, she's become like a coworker to me, with the stuff that we do during our breaks and everything, even though she works in a whole different industry. How many of these people actually are married? How many of them actually have family that they are actually living with? We have another issue in society of just loneliness in general, right? I mean, people have tried to find ways to, fill that loneliness over the years. People have tried to fill that loneliness through partying, through drinking, through all sorts of just, let's be honest, decadent behavior, right? And not the fault decadent behavior. I've definitely had my share, but that is what it is. People have found a different way to hide their loneliness inside of them. now that they're not able to go outside, now that they're not able to party and drink and go clubbing and do all these things that kind of hid their problems from them, their problems are starting to really begin to show, right? They're starting to realize the fact that they're alone. They're starting to realize the fact that they have nothing to live for but this crappy job that they don't really care for in the first place. Job should be second. Family and life should be first. So when you've taken away those things that kind of hid that from them, now they're more aware, and now they're starting to become more depressed because of it. I guarantee you the people who are becoming the most depressed through this are the people who are already alone, who just found different ways to hide the fact they were alone, versus now where they're no longer able to. But in the end, really, we shouldn't be having these lockdowns in the first place. Again, we're social creatures. There's no reason for us. The rest of this article keeps going through multiple other people who are suffering similar issues of, physical separation from colleagues and how terrible and draining that really is emotionally on them. The reality is, I think their real emotional drain is coming from the fact of they don't know what to do with their lives. They realize that their lives are just tied around this business and nothing else. They have nothing else going for them. If you read through the rest of the article, what you notice a very similar pattern. No one seems to be married, and as much as they mention, kids trapped at home, the reality is everyone that seems to be complaining in this article has no kids. They don't have that family network around them. They don't have a group of friends they can really rely on. They really just relied everything around work and then drinking and partying and clubbing. If that's you, if that's what you were dealing with, if that's how you handled your life, I hate to say it, you're probably going to be struggling right now with things locked down. Of course, things shouldn't be locked down. We're seeing massive mental effects on people, going not just from, the people who lost their jobs, but clearly the people who are white-collar workers. As much as I don't think people should be complaining too much, they aren't wrong when they say they are having some issues here, right? They are having some mental issues. That is 100% true. So we need to get everything opened up. We need to get people out socializing again. But until then, people also need to find out what their real reason is. Why are they here? What are they doing? Are they just going to be a cog in the machine? Or are they going to actually go out, meet someone, get married, have kids, have a family, and just have a good, healthy life, right? You can still have a good, healthy life right now. It's tough, but you still can. You just have to have your priorities straight. So, till next time, my name's James, and I'll be seeing you again real soon.